Yes. Good
Afternoon, today is Thursday, May 9th. 2024. This is a meeting of Senate Natural Resources and Energy. We're looking over bills that are on our calendar for action and want to review what the changes were and get to the punchline, consider the possibility of concurring with Bill S-264, inoculating to including rechargeable batteries and battery chaining products under the state battery stewardship program. S-305, inoculating miscellaneous changes to the Public Utility Commission. And we don't have 253 yet, so we can't address the building energy code bill other than it's being, they didn't message it, so it's we're waiting for it to arrive. So let's jump right in and do 254 first, please. See where we get. And just so people know, we have roughly 20 minutes. No rush.
So this is like
Wasn't a joke.
it's just my good reading of the city council. The House proposal of amendment to 254 made two technical changes to the bill and the battery stewardship or DPR program that you passed out. It extends the deadline, the deadline for the household hazardous products program, and it authorizes A&R to use what is called administrative use controls on hazardous materials spill sites.
Great.
So,
Tell us about the, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just to say, if they're, in essence, well, let's do the battery part first, and just so people know, the administrative use of control of contaminated sites is S-307. And I asked the House to consider putting it in there, in order to, well, send it back to save some calendar days.
So in the two battery technical changes, the first is to what is easily removable. It didn't actually say what was easily removable. And the advocates wanted it to say that the battery is readily detachable. And so that is the clarification to the definition of easily removable. The second is in the sale prohibition. Beginning in 2026, there's a ban on primary batteries, rechargeable batteries, or battery containing products. Except it didn't say rechargeable batteries or battery containing products in the sale prohibition. So those two terms were added in, and they were added in multiple places to clarify the sales prohibition. Section 4A of the House proposal of amendment. Last year, you passed the Household Hazardous Products EPR program. The stewardship organization for that program was required to register with A&R on or before January 1, 2025. They've asked for an additional 6 months in order to better organize and submit their application to A&R. And then last, administrative use control. This is a tool that the agency already uses, but they use it or they enter into these use controls through easements on property. And it's property where there's been a hazardous materials release. And these controls allow the agency to stage or phase in remediation instead of going to remedial, the final remedial standard right away. So what the problem is that it's hard for A&R to negotiate these easements. It takes time, it may even take money for them to do that. So what this section does is it gives them the ability to use administrative use control, and it puts the onus on the property owner to petition A&R for the use of administrative use controls. So it's not something A&R is imposing. It's something that is voluntary. It usually is going to help the property owner deal with the remediation in stages or at least plan for the full remediation. And it allows for flexibility in responding to hazardous materials release is, and that's basically what it is.
Can you give us an example of how like how they sort of got stuck on the easement side and how this would fit in?
Well, an example of, and it's an example that's been used in the house is, say you have PCB contamination in a school that was planning to do a full scale construction or reconstruct a wing in 5 years. If you go to full remediation right away, they have to basically tear out that source of that PCBs and incur the cost of remediation then. Whereas if they control the health threat with use controls, for 5 years, they can phase in full remediation during the planned construction that they had. So it protects health, but putting in controls that will reduce the exposure, while it allows the school to go forward with its planned construction and incorporate full remediation as part of that construction. So that's an example.
The exposure levels that are defined by the controls, are they the same as if they just went to full remediation or like?
So there will need to be site by site determinations of that, depending on who's using the area, where there's contamination, the level of contamination, if it exceeds the federal levels. So there's a lot of fact specific issues that would be involved in when and how the use controls are implemented. But that's partly a signifier of why use controls are good and allow flexibility, because there are so many criteria to deal with. You implement these use controls to figure out how you're going to do full remediation in a way that is acceptable to protect the public health and natural resources, while it's done in a kind of cost effective or at least predictable way.
Thank you. With required remediation, who is the entity that is requiring the full remediation?
Depending on the substance, it could be a EPA requirement, or it could be A&R. There are certain toxic substance control act requirements that if you exceed a certain level for a toxic substance, the federal government, the EPA regs require remediation. Otherwise, it's usually going to be underneath the state statutes and hazardous materials release rules.
So if it's an if it's an EPA requirement, do our control use authority allow us to?
You're gonna have to negotiate, the state will negotiate with EPA
Okay.
about the response.
Gotcha. And
Josh, can I just follow on that? So you said ANR will negotiate with EPA about the response.
Right, so if you have toxic substances in excess of certain levels, say PCBs, there's a provision in TSCA that requires you to respond within a certain time frame. Within 3 to 4 years, but it's really what EPA tells you to do. And so if EPA is saying, hey, you're gonna have to do something, ANR will say, well, we'll enter an administrative use control at that site. We'll implement these provisions to protect the public health for the short term while we plan. So maybe instead of getting a 2 to 3 year schedule from EPA, you get a 4 to 5 year schedule from EPA, which is something that I predict that schools and other property owners would prefer.
And one further question. Procedurally, did anybody challenge the germane? I guess now that it's here, it is germane,
So you can't challenge what happened in the other body.
right?
I don't try to opine on germaneness issues in the Senate because it's Secretary of Commerce.
Okay, well, maybe this isn't the,
Well, and just so you know, I mean, I had asked David
Yes,
You put some above.
right, I'm just wondering about the risk of it coming up. I don't know
It's in the bill.
procedurally,
Yeah, but if it's in the bill, that's.
if it's in the bill, somebody, it's not gonna be raised.
No, so if it's not in the underlying, okay.
You might have been able to challenge it in the House, but
But I made it through.
in the House, they didn't, and now it's in the proposal amendment, so.
There's not the opportunity.
Again, I'm not gonna
Okay,
try and
that's
go
fine.
politics,
It's okay, thank you.
basically.
Very nice.
Is it correct to think of this as helping solutions, you know, like actions can be taken in a more timely way because the amount of work to get started is less by going through this control group?
Well, you still have to implement controls that are protective of health and natural resources.
I mean, like, you don't have to go through the easement.
Oh, yes, that definitely is something.
I mean, like, if you could get started
Right.
faster, people
Right.
would really do administrative.
Yes, so yes. Because if you look at the proposal, the property owner has to petition for it, they have to propose what their use controls are. So it's shifting in a way, some of the responsibility to the property owner to take. You know, to take initiative in the use of administrative.
And then outside of this, even if this didn't happen, the agency, if it saw a situation that needed to address, could go the other route, the easement route. And
Or they could go the easement route, or they could go to full remediation. In order.
yeah, please.
Sorry, this is back in the.
Feeling a little bad, seeing you up for this.
No, it's fine, I'm into it. Back in the EPR deadline, you said, well, I guess I should just say, who asked for the 6-month extension?
I can't remember the association's name.
Allison Prowling for the Household and Consumer Commercial Products Association.
That was the group that asked for the,
Yes, in conjunction with, we met with ANR and Chittenden Solid Waste District prior to, we all agree with the request.
okay,
Thank you.
so what was the Household Consumer Products?
The Household and Consumer Products Association, HCPA.
And in conjunction with the agency.
We came to them with the request prior to making the request of the House Natural Resources Committee or Energy and Environment Committee.
Any more questions for Mr. O'Grady? He's feeling comfortable with. This would be motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we concur with the House proposal of amendment on S-254.
Further discussion? The purple hole. Pretty sure.
Senator McDonald, Senator McCormick, Senator White, yes. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Chair Bray.
Yeah.
3-0.
Reporting.
Well, you don't have to, but if you're the original reporter, but.
I am happy to, though if I run into a question that I cannot answer, I will either yield to you or get unmuted councils.
Sure.
So that's not.
Yeah.
If you're making faces like, I know the answer to this question, I'll just yield to you. This is fine.
Good afternoon. So we also have 305 back and it's gotten a little bigger. It's also in our calendar.
Yes.
Page 4671.
I'm so sorry, I printed.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Oh, thanks so much. One step at a time.
Ooh, Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel, and there's a section by section. So, yeah. The House made very few changes to what you sent them in your miscellaneous bill. And then they tacked on a bunch of stuff of their own. So one change they made is that in regards to the. Oh, I'm gonna jump in between fee standard, but. On the fee standard, they made a change regarding the. Annual registration date for fuel sellers, they changed it in the statute from June 30th. And having the PUC when to just January 31st. That was a request. And the fuel sellers.
Of the PUC.
No, of the fuel sellers.
Oh, right.
Oh, we're both,
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
Sorry.
This is so that it's not during their busiest
Right.
season is when it's, which
Yeah.
I think we tried to do. I know,
So-
one minute.
You made the first one. You made the first one in statute January 31st and then said, and the PUC may change thereafter.
Oh, that's-
You know, as part of their rulemaking and
Yeah.
the research they did on all this, they could set a different date. I guess going back up actually into section 7, the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act, they did make a change. So that they said, I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but I believe they added a cap. To the funds,
Or-
that wasn't your bill. They added a cap for both oh no, I'm sorry, here we are, I'm getting very confused.
Since they adjusted for AED,
They did, yes, so the department requested that there be a cap on the amount. For the entity that has an annual budget of less than 8 million. And so that cap is 800,000, and I believe that's approximately what they are spending, and so BEP, I believe, agreed to that. Yeah.
it was what they were going to spend anyway, but they weren't constrained before. That was my understanding. Okay.
Alright, I believe the next change is in section 12. And this was a change from the Ways and Means Committee, and this is also on the Clean Heat Standard. And so this is on the tax department's sharing of data. So you sent them a shall share, they went with may.
They were nervous about it.
Yep. But I do think it is compromise language, it is a may share in the discretion of the commissioner, but it does say at a minimum, they shall share the names of the entities paying the tax, so.
Okay. Great, let's improve up their dealer list.
So then, starting after that, I believe are the new sections that were added by the House, so starting with section 13, this is clarifying the application fee for energy storage facilities. When they have their CPG application, it's $100, which is in line with the other application fees. Or $25 for a modification, and so this is in line with the procedure they have for other CPGs. Next, section 14, is language that came out of the energy saving account program pilot program that actually expired last year. And there's some recommendations that came out of it, and the recommendations are to update the existing energy savings account program, and so this is in section 14. So it makes some changes about so for the customer credit program, which is a slightly different program, they can use up to 75% of their funds, up to 90% of their funds, and for the energy efficiency account program, they can use 75% of their funds. And we haven't talked about this in a while, so I feel like I am not actually explaining. Do you all know what the energy savings account program is? Okay, so they they've added some like clarifying language here, because currently that program has only had one participating entity. But in the pilot program that had more flexibility, and there were more entities that wanted to participate. So these are some of the things that came out of it. And so in addition, the remaining portion of the funds can be spent on administrative measurement, verification, and evaluation costs. And then they did add this language about what the efficiency funds can be spent on, which is what the pilot program had. And so it's electric energy efficiency, and then non-electric energy efficiency, including thermal and process fuel efficiency, flexible load management, combined heat and power, demand management, energy productivity, and energy storage. Okay.
Are the range of things you can take on into legitimate projects changed compared to the PISA or CCP pilots?
No. That was what was part of the pilot, but it is different from what the permanent program currently allows. And then they also set a cap on this program as well. And so for the energy saving account program, they set that $2 million annually and $1 million for the customer program.
Yeah, the $2 million, that's for all customers in total. I didn't-
Yeah, and so it's the aggregate of the energy efficiency charge funds that would be spent. And so that's sort of how they had structured the pilot, with adding up multiple entities to get, or less of the fees.
Commission to the divvying. If it's oversubscribed,
I think it's an application process, and honestly, they're going to have to update their order that establishes their program in response to this, so I think they'll be providing guidance on how they will achieve that. Alright, so that's the energy savings account section. The next three sections, they've added some language regarding thermal energy. And thermal energy, thermal energy exchange and thermal energy exchange networks. I'm sorry, there's a typo on the section by section. And so this has been, you've seen the bill before.
exercise and delayed gratification.
I know.
And we worked on it a long time ago.
Well, and this is a very limited form of it. So it's adding the definitions, it's adding a statement that municipalities don't need a CPG. To construct energy thermal networks. But it's also not going so far to say that other entities will, it's actually then creating a study. Or rather a report, so the PUC is gonna report back next December on how to support the development of thermal energy networks and how the permitting process should work. So it's not the full ask from the bill, but it is a step.
Do you know why it ended up getting limited that way? Were they running into troubles figuring out how to do it?
I think this was taken up only a couple weeks ago. As part of this bill and not standalone. So I think they had limited time for testimony, the PUC had questions. And they were comfortable doing research into this and coming back with suggestions, so. That's where the committee landed.
So the existing utilities that can do this. They won't need a CPG, although they ordinarily would. Correct?
Well, we didn't know, so currently nobody is required. This is not directly regulated under 48 or any other CPGs, and so. People can continue to seek to do this work
Without one.
without one.
But they don't need to become a utility.
Correct.
Is kind of I think the concern that like in Hartford, we in particular there was a lot of interest in this because we thought that we would have to create a utility cost.
So with this, who's gonna get to do what compared to current law?
There is not much of a change to current law under this. So municipalities are given the clear authority to construct, operate, set rates for, finance, and use eminent domain for thermal energy networks without needing a CPG. So it was clarifying, because that would have been clear right now, because it's a thing that currently isn't regulated, if that was legal or not.
And then so lines like 3 and 4, page 21. That saying, this is where we had hoped maybe we would go. That you would have a mutual benefit enterprise cooperative or common interest communities. And they're not clear to go ahead and do this.
No. It's not saying that.
It's not saying.
No.
Was it this definition does not include a mutual? Maybe I should, are we gonna get into mutual benefit enterprises, right?
No. No, this language is actually not doing very much. So, I mean, we can talk about this offline because you have to go, but this definition is being added and the only place it's being added is in regards to municipalities. So it's not imposing regulations on others. So I'm happy to talk about this offline.
We're a little bit out of time. Thank you for getting it started, and we'll finish this one.
I mean, I think I can finish. Unless you have questions, because the only other things in this bill
Yes,
are, it's extending the ride date deadline schedule by a year for all of the dates. It's extending current dig safe notification requirements from 48 hours to 72 hours. And then finally, the last part is a study by the PUC on current and potential programs and initiatives on reducing and stabilizing energy costs for low and moderate income households.
So this is the ratepayer, this is what they're calling the ratepayer protection area. Yeah, Mr. Chair, personally, I'm really appreciative of the work that the House committee did on this, and I would move to concur, but I don't wanna be
no, that's
in this.
fine, I mean, I didn't realize quite how limited what in a one thermal was, but.
I'm also comfortable. If you would like to. move
Yeah,
forward.
so we have a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we concur with the House proposal of amendment on S 305.
Any further discussion? Well,
McDonald, McCormick, White, yes, Watson,
Yes.
Chair Bray.
yes,
3.
who would like to vote? Report it.
No, thank you.
Okay. You're there. Well,
You don't.
Or it must be, I mean,
no,
Do you
no, I'm
not?
totally,
Okay.
I think I reported it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
also I have an extra turkey club sandwich wrap.
Yes, thank you.